Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's 3:31 p.m. I'm calling this final meeting of 2024 for the Maple Broadband Executive Committee to order. So first up is to approve the agenda. So I've distributed the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Oh, I'll second.
Great. All right. Any comments? Edits to the meeting agenda? All right. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Okay. Next up is approval of the minutes from December 5th.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any edits to the minutes? Comments? Okay. Hearing none. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public comments. Would anyone like to make a public comment? Hello, Lynn.
Hey there.
You have joined right at the public comment section. Would you like to make a public comment in your final meeting before your, well, as treasurer-elect?
No, I don't think so. I have no public comments at this time.
That's fine. No pressure.
Actually, I do. Quick question. Is Maple Broadband, I should know this because I should look at the map, but are they in Starksboro?
It's a member town, yes, but the entirety of Starksboro is in WCVT's ILEC footprint.
Okay, because I was on a meeting with somebody in Starksboro the other day and kept losing them because their internet connection was.
Nancy lives in Starksboro. You might bump into her up there at some point.
Okay. Well,
Yep, I think Starksboro and Lincoln, poor Starksboro and Lincoln were low on the list of priority towns for WCVT to build out.
okay. Good. I'll encourage my friend to encourage them to get Maple Broadband.
Well,
That's it.
Okay. All right, Steve, chair report.
Sure. Didn't the executive director do their report before the chair in the past? Did that get reversed? Not that it matters to me, just kind of curious.
Well, it used to be that you were first and I was second, and then you went away, and so I deleted you, and then I put you back in the wrong order. So I've now put you back in the correct order.
All right, well, it doesn't matter. We'll make it real brief. And some of you are already aware of most of this. It was since last week that we received a signed easement from the town of Middlebury for space for our network hub there. And just today I sent in a zoning application, so that's well in the works. And the other surprise that Ellie passed on to me beginning of this week maybe, is that we've also received a $50,000 ARPA contribution from Middlebury, which is completely unexpected and great. Love the money. It's not going to get matched. That's not part of that group that does get a match, but Ellie will find a way to make good use of that additional contribution. Just beefs up that, and there's no strings on that, so that helps a lot when we're doing construction.
Can we take that as evidence of the community's interest in seeing Maple Broadband have a bigger footprint there?
Yeah, 100%. I could talk about that when I get to my executive director report.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Welcome, Adam. So executive director report. So Steve stole my thunder, but that's what happens when he gets to go first. He gets the right to do that. So I wanted to thank Ross Conrad for helping me make sure that we actually got this on the town manager's radar, such that we could get on the final select board meeting of the year, such that they could vote to approve the $50,000 to Maple Broadband. So Ross and I gave a little song and dance and talked about some of our plans. And so absolutely, you can take it as support from the select board of Middlebury for what we're doing and our work at Universal Service to bring service to the northern parts of Middlebury that are unserved, as well as parts of town that only have that don't have access to any sort of fiber yet. So that's the good news. I don't know if you can call it bad news, but Steve and I had this lighting of the transport ring. So the transport ring. So all the 4 hubs are connected now. So the fiber ring is up, and it has been weeks and weeks now that we've been expecting to have the final distribution fiber and the addresses that are adjacent to that ring actually brought into active service. And man, it just really seems like Jason Gay from Mission Broadband has been joking that as soon as he got on the project, we started seeing problems. And it's kind of funny, but it's not funny. But it's not a major problem, but it turns out that there was some inconsistencies in the materials provided by Vantage Point, and B, the splicer was using an old test form and not the updated test form. And as a result of that, he went ahead and decided to splice things in the field according to his own view of how things should be spliced, which is he really never had authority to do that. So we had a long call about that this morning between Mission and WCVT. And where it stands right now is Mission has an action item to get the updated documentation that reflects what is currently built in the field and tested and working to Waitsfield, because we don't want to, just because it's been built and tested and is working and passing spec, doesn't mean we want to turn it up that way if it's going to create headaches down the road in terms of maintenance and if it simply wasn't done properly. So we have put that ball in their courts to either bless it or not, and then obviously Mission is escalating this with the splicers, so that we made it very, very clear this morning that he does not have the authority to do that. And if he ever does something like that again, we're going to make him go back and do it again, regardless of how much time it takes. Because we don't have to pay for that. We don't have to pay for the double work. But obviously, I just want everyone to know about this, because it's not a major thing, but it was clearly a failure of process. So, and it's also, that's one of the reasons why we still aren't live with these areas when we were expecting to be live with them some weeks ago. It's just been one thing after another. There was the faulty cable reel and the transport route, and then there was bad weather, and now there's this. But the light's at the end of the tunnel. Steve, something you want to add?
Yeah, the splicers work for Syracuse. Syracuse was in on the calls this morning, and we did discuss the issue with the splicers, and I guess Matt Scorzilli was on the call too, because ultimately Syracuse is responsible for doing this right, and I don't know if they are owning it. It's fine because it's going to get taken care of. We're not going to pay for it, but it's not. This is not okay, especially because it's kind of a lot of this stuff was discovered. If it hadn't been for Mission. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing is that it was news to me as of yesterday when Jason Gay called me that the splicer had basically taken it upon himself to make field changes. But apparently it wasn't the first time it's happened, which is not a good thing, because Syracuse didn't tell us and Mission didn't tell us. And apparently the discrepancy between the Vantage Point maps and test forms is also not the first time it's happened. So I was a little bit peeved at these major things all of a sudden only getting to us now, and it wasn't the first time. So Mission, the first thing is to get these areas live, and then the second thing is Mission is going to go back at what's happened in the past and spot check. And because again, to some degree, this is a failure of oversight on them potentially. So Jason's going to go back at no cost to us and spot check things that have happened before and see if any remediation might be necessary. And then we've also talked about steps to put in place going forward to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So, yeah, not real pleased at the failure of communication, but at least we're aware of it now and we're taking steps to address.
Yeah, at some point, our expectation is we're going to go out to bid shortly for construction work and for construction oversight work, and we expect more. We expect better from them. It's like they were perfect. They were perfect for most of the year, and then suddenly just everything kind of fell apart. So I don't know what to do about it, but I think that kind of performance is not. We don't want them to work at that level of performance. We want, somehow or other it needs to be caught before we just discover it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Mission at least discovered it, but you're right. We don't want Syracuse to be working at that level of performance. So anyway, there's no action required by the executive committee. We really just wanted you to be aware.
As a clarifying question on that. I appreciate that the focus is on problem solving and getting this right. I do want to pick up on your point. It sounds like our contractual relationship is with Syracuse, not directly to their subcontractor, if you will. Is all of this well documented, both in terms of the fault or the breach, if I might, and then what the reparative actions are that they're taking? Or is it only phone calls?
There is documentation. It hasn't been pulled together into a written narrative, but we have the test forms, we have the maps, we have the marked up red lines of the maps from the splicer. So we have the required information that it could be written into a narrative if required.
I'll defer to you. You and Steve have been in the phone calls, but if you want to document the contract default, I don't know if that's where this is, but do so, because if the only reliance is on the assurances you're getting in a phone call.
Yep, agreed. Well, I think the first thing is to figure out if it's a failure of process to deviate from the engineered design. Having said that, this is kind of a minor technical thing. It wasn't like it was a major change. I mean, the failure of process is more upsetting than anything. So the first thing is to see if what's been delivered really needs to be reworked, or if it's simply fine, just the numbering isn't as designed and the numbering is a little bit different, and then we'll update the documentation. But you do make a good point, Jeff, that we should probably formally write them a mail to reiterate that this happened, it must not happen again, and just what I said there verbally, that if the splicer does anything like this again, just as a matter of process, he's going to be forced to go back and redo it. And if he sees designs or documents from Vantage Point that don't match up or don't make sense, he needs to communicate and not just take it upon himself to try and fix the problem without telling anyone. So I'll take that as an action item. Adam?
Yeah, and it's just, I'm not familiar with the process of stringing these up. So when you say the splicer deviated, how many times? I assume the splicer is where you put the cables together, basically, when you run out of a roll. Is that right or not?
Well, what we're talking about here is the distribution splicing. So every fiber that's in there needs to be a document that says where it starts and where it ends. And so ultimately, each of them is either assigned to a house or a splice case. So the numbering is what changed. So he picked cable 3 as opposed to cable 4.
Okay, so it doesn't affect necessarily the performance of the system, but what it does is impact your ability to troubleshoot down the road. So if somebody's house goes down, you say, okay, they were supposed to be number 4, and now they're number 3, and you fixed the wrong thing. Is that the issue?
Well, sort of. That's the documentation that's being sorted out now before we turn it over to Wakefield and say turn it up, because just because every house is getting good light and good speed, the numbers are all wrong now. So if they tried to connect someone, they would guaranteed do it wrong. So, but at the long term, and updating the documents so that we know which number goes to where is not really a big deal. What is a big deal is that in any sort of design, you have the fiber assignments, then you have spare counts. And so if the design resulted in, rather than like all the spare counts being at the end in some sort of a logical order or the beginning or whatnot, if the spare counts are, if this affects the spare counts and it affects the extensibility of the system in a way going forward that Waitsfield isn't happy with, that's the sort of thing that's going to make us go back and have him redo it. But if it's simply a matter of he changed the order, if he changed what number he went to and reordered, just picked different strands to go to different houses, everyone seemed to agree it's really not a big deal. It's more of a process failure that it shouldn't have happened. Anything you want to add, Steve?
No, Adam. Every strand of fiber that's in that network, each strand is dedicated to a potential subscriber. So there's one fiber strand that I'm on right now. And so the trick is we're building out 144 fiber cables. Lots of 72 fiber cables, thousands and thousands of strands of fiber, and each strand of fiber has to make it from its destination at the subscriber, for example, to the network hub. So that's the tricky part. And I think the challenge would be long-term maintenance, because if the records are inaccurate, and the records that WCBT has on file are inaccurate, then a repair that might take an hour could take a day. And it's kind of on them then, but I think really ultimately, Ellie and I are feeling strongly focused on giving WCBT the perfect finished product, so they can't come back at us or anything like that. So we're really focused really strongly on that. And I think the kind of suggestion that Jeff made makes a lot of sense.
So thank you both for that clarification.
Okay, so I'm going to move on. So the other things I'm working on, obviously, is the, okay, so this is kind of an awkward situation because the BEAD program, as we all know, we've talked about it many times, it was a surprise, a deviation from the VCB's Volume 2, that the quiet period for BEAD started when the pre-application window opened and not when the application window opened. And the quiet period means that prospective subrecipients, such as Maple Broadband, are not allowed to talk about the specific nature of our application with the general public or with other prospective subrecipients other than our collaborative partners. And it is completely unclear to me what this means in terms of talking about BEAD in a public meeting. I've asked this question to the VCBB verbally and in writing, have not gotten an answer. So I think to be safe, we may want to go into executive session before we talk about anything related to the BEAD program until we get clarity that that's not what we have to do. So I wanted to mention that. So perhaps part of my executive director report can happen when we get to executive session later on the agenda. So other than that, I'm working on just trying to wrap up before the end of year because I'm planning to go on vacation for the next 2 weeks, and I really want to make sure that anything critical that needs to happen before that happens before that and gets done, so I'm not doing it when I'm on vacation or worrying about it. I wanted to give a quick update as to where we are with the promo for the food shelf donations. So we had 2 people who upgraded their speed in the month of November, and we'll be getting our December upgrade count from WCBT early next month. And we have so far 11 new registrations, so new people ordering service since that promotion was announced. So that's the current count. And there's two other updates, but I think we can probably cover those under updates under 6C. So any questions for me?
Do you want to go into executive session now?
No, let's do it when we get to BEAD.
Okay.
Okay. So any questions for me? Nope. Okay. Moving on. So I guess now is the time for executive session. Yes, BEAD update 6A. Sorry,
Okay.
Steve. I somehow thought it was 6B.
Get me all ready and everything, and then I had to cool down again. But okay.
Sorry.
I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding Maple Broadband's business strategy would clearly place us at a substantial disadvantage because it risks disclosure of our activities if they were to be communicated to the public. Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a third too, so Jeff and Shannon, thanks. Great. I move that we enter into executive session to discuss business strategy under Title I, Section 313, subsection A of the Vermont statutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Hey, all right, big three. Okay, Ellie,
Stop
turn
the
the recording off and you have the floor.